Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to Tech Talk. Of course, my name is Jordan Wong, and as always, I'm joined by Marcello Montanari and Rob Cavallo, both managing directors and senior portfolio managers on the RBC GAM North American Equity Team, best known for their work running the RBC Life Science and Technology Fund, as well as the RBC Global Technology Fund. And we use this web series once a month to talk about all things technology and healthcare related. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Hey, good to be back.
All right. So why don't we jump right in? Already a number of things to talk about for this month's episode. Kind of want to focus on recent healthcare news. Pretty big headline came out just the other day around NVIDIA and Eli Lilly. So Rob, I'd love to get your thoughts on that. And then towards the end, we'll transition over to a conversation on Anthropic's latest LLM, Claude Code. So Rob, maybe start us off with your initial thoughts and what this might mean for both NVIDIA. You cover NVIDIA and Lilly, so what this might mean for both of these businesses. There's a billion-dollar partnership announced between NVIDIA and Eli Lilly. So maybe your first thoughts and the market's initial reaction to this as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. So I would say it's important to think about time frames here. This is a very interesting announcement, and I think it has long-term implications that are very positive for Lilly. And I don't think this is going to be something that's unique to Lilly. I think that you're going to see a whole number of companies across the biopharma landscape partner with NVIDIA and or others that can specialize in developing models and AI instances that are specific to the needs of that particular industry, which is very different than just general open source kind of or open model type LLMs that might be useful in a range of industries. So this is basically what you're doing is you're taking NVIDIA's expertise and compute capacity in terms of developing a healthcare specific cloud. Lilly will be taking essentially their data and some of their drug discovery tools, kind of putting it together and let's see what happens. Perfectly honest, I don't think you're going to see a 2026 result come from this. I think people will talk about this. It'll come up on conference calls. Like, are you seeing, early benefits from the collaboration? I wouldn't bet on this being 2026. We see tangible results. I think, it's possible we move into 27 and we start to hear that, we have actually been able to fast track some of our early drug discovery work and get something into kind of first preclinical type testing environments in a quicker and timelier, like a timelier and more cost efficient fashion. I think that's something we'll see, probably not this year, but maybe this year, but maybe into 27. And again, it's something we're going to see across the industry. It's not going to be something that's unique to Lilly, but Lilly as the leader in this space today makes the most sense that, this is where we see kind of the initial collaboration. But NVIDIA has talked about developing cloud AI environments for the healthcare industry for many, many years. NVIDIA has talked about a few verticals across the economy which require very specialized expertise, and it's not something that you're going to be able to necessarily buy an off-the-shelf product from AWS or Azure or any of the other clouds. So this is something that's not a new thing that NVIDIA is trying to do. So it's something that's been a work in progress for at a minimum 5 years, if not longer. NVIDIA's talked about this. So great to see the announcement. I would pump the brakes in terms, again, how quickly we see anything tangible come from it. But I think just speaks to our outlook as to how healthcare is going to be one of the leading areas across the economy in terms of the deployment phase of AI. Really over the next 5 years, we'll start to see a lot of real benefit flow through to various parts of the sector, including biopharma.
And do you think maybe, Rob, this is kind of like the first domino to fall? Does this kind of prompt other or like Lilly competitors to also kind of maybe fast track and
So I would
work with
say
this?
that when I have discussions with these management teams, they're all talking about they're using AI across different functions already. So some of it is in drug discovery, some of it is in the clinical processing of clinical identification of patients or the actual filing documents. So companies are already working on it. I wouldn't be surprised if you see another NVIDIA announcement from, and I'm just going to say AstraZeneca, Roche, Merck. I bet you would sort of be my three that I'd bet on coming next, maybe even a Vertex. But this is something that it's gonna happen. This is not going to be unique to Lilly. No, the time frame again is an unknown, but yeah, I think it's just the first of a series of announcements we'll probably see along this vein.
All right, maybe that bodes well for my bold prediction from December. We'll see. Rob, there's been some M&A activity in the healthcare space around a business that perhaps most people aren't as familiar with, but one that a business that you've been following for a little bit. So maybe just bring us up to speed on what's going on there.
Yeah, actually, just this morning we had a nice M&A win. So a small mid-cap company that we have in the portfolio is a company called Penumbra. So they're a leader in a technology that works in a number of neuro conditions, but really their focus, their specialty is in stroke. So removing blood clots, for a very simplistic way to think about it, they're a leading technology in how these blood clots are removed. They were actually taken out today, or an agreement was announced for Boston Scientific to acquire Penumbra today. And, it's a nice win. Penumbra has been one of those companies that it's made sense strategically why a number of companies would be interested here. The deal terms, I believe, it was a 20+% premium to recent average pricing. I don't really see any issues in terms of deal closing, and I think this bodes well for like the setup for M&A across healthcare. I think probably you see a bit more in the biopharma space just because of different requirements that we're seeing for large caps and a lot of mid caps that are ready to be sold for quite frankly. So hopefully this is just the start of a trend in the space, and it's something that could bring back more interest broadly into healthcare and into a sector that we already feel is set up well for 26. This could just be like another kind of optionality upside driver. This M&A tailwind across the sector.
So we didn't talk too much about M&A last year in the context of healthcare. Safe to say you think like 26 is maybe a better environment for some increased activity on that front?
Yeah, I mean, we do like it's one of those spaces where there's continual deals. I would say we started to see some of that pick up towards the end of last year. We saw like a number of deals in the biopharma space, nothing that's huge dollar value, but I think you'll start to see more activity as these drug companies in the large cap space get comfortable with the tariff and the drug pricing environment and feel that they can start putting money to work. There was also, a disconnect on where biotechs thought their valuations were. And I think some of that landscape is kind of clearing up. And I think, the bid ask spread is kind of getting back into an equilibrium here. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see continued pickup in activity across the sector.
Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you. Marcello, some interesting news around the latest from Anthropic, Claude Code,
Opus 4.5.
Opus 4.5. Excuse me. Something that you've been paying a lot of attention to, that you're seeing a lot of excitement around. So no specific question. I just want to kind of hand it over to you to kind of walk us through what this is, what it might mean, and how you're thinking about it right now.
Yeah, sure. So if we back up a little bit, what we're kind of seeing is that there's, the AI infrastructure in terms of the hyperscalers and all that has kind of broken down, and the models have kind of broken down into these ecosystems. So you kind of got the open AI with Microsoft and Oracle and CoreWeave kind of ecosystem, and NVIDIA is a big part of that. You've got the Google ecosystem, which includes Broadcom in particular. Here in Canada, you got Celestica. Then you've got Anthropic, which is their closest partner, and I think it's somewhere just below 20% ownership is Amazon. That's their main guy. But their chips that they've been using as Trainium, it's an Amazon design, and an Inferentia, but increasingly they're using other chips, and they've made some announcements to that. So we've been kind of watching, developments amongst the models and stuff. And what kind of happened just before Christmas was Claude Code Opus 4.5 came out, and as you know, we've been watching all the developer communities and the way they're talking about things, and that kind of helped us kind of pick up the fact that the Google ecosystem, like last spring, was really kind of gaining ground, and the Gemini models and Gemma and Nano Banana was just like taking everyone by surprise at how good they were. So we're kind of seeing the same thing right now with Opus 4.5 in the domain of coding. And when you're listening to people who really know what they're doing, like a perfect example is Toby Lutke from Shopify, who is an absolute like monster coder. Like he knows what he's doing. He made the quote on, he put it on X. He goes, "I shipped more code in the last 3 weeks than the decade before." So there's probably quite a bit of hyperbole in that, and I'm sure he's exaggerating, but he's just talking about how good this tool is, and what it is basically. It's a tool. It's a framework tool to help programmers basically develop programs, and this is part of a very long trend. Um, there used to be a time when the only people who could program computers were like the guys who actually coded for the chip itself. And then we kind of abstracted that and we brought in operating systems, and then we got applications. And then, like you think about Excel, you've got macros in there. So with each level, more and more people were able to kind of, get deeper into the computer and basically code them and make them and give them instructions. And so what these models are now is, we're now at the point where the coding language is becoming English, which is a game changer. Like we're basically democratizing the coding of machines. And
And have you played around with it at all, or
yeah, well, not with Claude Code, but for example, one of our code developers here, he convinced me that I got to spend like a couple of hours just with Google's anti-gravity offering, and basically I coded my own app. I logged in. There was some videos of some of the other people there who had done stuff, and I basically just took one of the frameworks that they use to code it, and I just changed the parameters of what I wanted, and I basically built myself my own app. And I haven't coded anything since, like, Commodore 64 days. So, but anyway, so I think this is a game changer that we're seeing here. We're completely democratizing this. We're making it very, very easy for people to basically just request code, and have machines do things for them. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Amazon's stock price has been, acting pretty well in the last couple of weeks. I think it's kind of part of that whole ecosystem thing. So there's a lot more work to be done on our part here, but this looks like it's really important. Like some guys have called this like the ChatGPT moment. Some other guys have said this, this is the reinvention of the printing press. So I'm taking those things really seriously. Looking at this very closely, and on the flip side, this has basically brought another layer of pressure on the software names.
yeah.
In some cases, it's merited, and in a lot of cases, it's not. But the market will do what it wants to do, and right now, it's basically taking all the software companies and kind of giving them a kick in the back.
Now, maybe just to elaborate on that, like software has been kind of beaten down for the last little bit. What's your approach to investing across the sector right now? Do you see opportunity, like pockets of opportunity for 26 and beyond, or is it always a wait and see?
Well, I mean, there's always a wait and see element in this
Yeah.
business. I'd say, first of all, like the valuations have come down, and for a select set of names, I think that presents opportunity. But right now, the sentiment on software is just absolutely terrible, and it's gotten very terrible very quickly. And the market tends to overshoot, on the downside and the upside. So I suspect that there'll be some sort of recalibration of all of this. I think that the key to all this is to just, for sure, there's going to be a lot of software companies that are going to be in the crosshairs, that perhaps their application is not is not complex enough, or doesn't, or has not does not have the domain expertise of something else. I don't know how to say that better, but there's, let's call them simple apps. There's simple apps that can probably be copied very quickly, and then there's things that are very complex. Like you think of enterprise resource planning systems, CRM systems. These things become the big, systems of records. What they do is they automate a whole bunch of processes. So it's very hard to replicate something like that. And then the amount of integrations that are involved, between these systems and other systems, and perhaps with clients, with customers, suppliers, you name it. The more tentacles these systems have, the more difficult it would be to basically replace them. So, we tend to gravitate towards things like that than something that's quite simple. I'm not going to name names just to keep us on side with the powers that be, but so we're keeping an eye on that, and I think ultimately what we're going to see is that some of these big systems, some of these big software providers are, and I forgot to mention domain expertise. Domain expertise is super important, but I think we're going to start to see these software providers actually implementing all sorts of AI solutions, user interfaces, agents within their software that basically raises the entire value of the software package and actually makes them even stickier.
Okay.
And stickiness has two. There's the financial stickiness, but there's also the operational stickiness.
Oh.
It's very hard to get a company to just change the way they do things and say, I know you've been using Oracle for, for the last 15 years. We're going to swap you out and put you on, this thing that was vibe coded by the accounting department. So,
No,
so
Can I
that's
actually
all
add
really
one piece? I think one
Yeah, of
other
course.
thing that could be important too is like which of the companies are also willing to like amend their operating model to some degree, and like
Right.
how do you rejig your revenue model, and who's willing to kind of give some upfront for the longer term benefit might go a long way as well. It's kind of coming from my perspective from the cheap seats.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we already saw that when we went from on-prem software to the SaaS world. Eventually, every company transitioned. So right now, we'll probably start to see more and more transitions towards what they call consumption-based pricing and things like that. But more and more, we're going to hear more and more about value-based pricing and
Mm.
things like that. So yeah, we're going to start to see companies, take a look at start to transition some of their models, their revenue models and so on and so forth. I fully expect that'll happen.
No, that's all
So
great.
coming
Uh,
back to NVIDIA just for a second, I just wanted to make the point when Rob was talking about it in the healthcare, in the context of healthcare. NVIDIA has been cutting deals with like a lot of companies in all sorts of different verticals. Like they've got their fingers everywhere. And as Rob was speaking, it was just what had clicked in my mind was that just I think it was a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, NVIDIA made a big announcement with Boston Dynamics, which is the robotics company that's well known for the crazy dogs and but other than the crazy dogs, they also have a humanoid that has used to be all hydraulics and now it's all electronics or all electric. And incidentally, which is owned by Hyundai Motor Corp,
mm.
which a lot of people don't know, but and and deals with with Google itself and lots of different places and verticals that they're getting their fingers in.
No, this is all great. I think it sounds like 26 is shaping up to be, pretty interesting year, and certainly lots to talk about in the months to come on this program. Maybe before we sign off, Marcello, you mentioned you built an app over the holidays. Mind maybe just giving us a quick overview of the app that you built?
Oh, it's just an application that basically it goes to the Edgar database, which is the SEC's filings database, and it looks for the last 7 days, and then I change it to 14 days. Well, actually, it has two buttons, a 7 and a 14, and it basically goes and it searches the filings to see uh, if um, if any companies had lost their head of sales, head of global sales, chief marketing officer, anyone who's involved with the sales, the
Mm,
top line revenue of a company, chief marketing officer, those type of people, if any of them had basically left. And at first, I wasn't sure if it worked because I hit the 7 day button and nothing came up. And then for a few days after, I kept hitting 777. Nothing came up. And then added the 14,
yeah.
and then I got one company. I forget what it was. It was basically some small company that's a public filer, but it's not in the S&P 500. So I think it works, but you could see how, like when you're doing it, you can see how it's creating all the code, and as you're going along, it's asking you questions, and you basically just answer it, and it's very kind of give and take, and at the end of it, you end up with an application. Now, the problem is here at RBC, we can't just take something that we've developed somewhere else and move it here. So it's basically just on my machine at home.
Right on. Probably not coming to an Apple store, the App Store anytime soon.
No.
Okay, fair enough.
So.
No, that was great, gentlemen. Thank you so much. As always, really appreciate your time and insights. We'll wrap things up here, and we'll be back next month. All the best. Thanks everyone for watching.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, cheers.